Theories of punishment. So there are five theories: deterrent, preventive, reformative, retributive, and compensation theory. Deterrent theory of punishment. So punishment is primarily deterrent when its object is to show the futility of crime and thereby teach a lesson to others. Deterrence acts on the motives of the offenders, whether actual or potential. Offences are committed in most cases as a result of conflict between the so called interest of the wrongdoer and those of society at large. The object of punishment, according to this theory, is to show that in the final analysis, crime is never profitable to the offender, and as Luke observed, to make crime an ill bargain to the offender. By making it an ill bargain to the offender, the world at large would learn that crime is a costly way of achieving an end. The idea behind deterrent punishment is that of preventing crime by the infliction of an exemplary sentence on the offender. By this, the state seeks to create fear in its members and thus deter them from committing crime through fear psychology. The rigorous of penal discipline is made a terror and a warning to the offender and others. According to the exponents of this theory, punishment is meant to prevent the person concerned and other persons from committing similar offences. The advocates for the retention of capital punishment rely on this theory in support of their contention. They argue that capital punishment, by its very nature, cannot have either a reformative value or be a retributive necessity. Its only value, if at all, is by way of deterrence. However, the theory of deterrent punishment fails to achieve its goal. A hardened criminal becomes accustomed to the severity of punishment, and deterrence does not always prevent him from committing a crime. On the other hand, it also fails to affect an ordinary criminal, as very often a crime is committed in a moment of excitement. If the crime is premeditated, the offender commits the crime knowing full well the consequences arising from his act and performs the act because he cannot help but do it. Preventive theory of punishment. So, if the deterrent theory tries to put an end to the crime by causing fear of the punishment in the mind of the possible crime doer, the preventive theory aims at preventing crime by disabling the criminal. For example, by inflicting the death penalty on the criminal, or by confining him in prison, or by suspending his driving license, as the case may be. Thus, the extreme penalty, the death sentence, ensures that once and for all the offender will be prevented from repeating the heinous act. In the past, maiming was considered an effective method of preventing the wrongdoer from committing the same crime in the future. By dismembering the offending part of the body, thus a thief's hand would be cut off or a sexual off. In the ultimate analysis, the preventive mode of punishment works in three ways. First, by inspiring all prospective wrongdoers with the fear of punishment. Second, by disabling the wrongdoer from immediately committing any crime. Third, by transforming the offender by a process of reformation and reduction so that he would not commit crime again. In this connection, the following extract from Rule 58 of the International Standard Minimum Rules is illuminative. The purpose and justification of a sentence of imprisonment or a similar measure derivative of liberty is ultimately to protect society against crime. This end can only be achieved if the period of imprisonment is used to ensure, so far as possible, that upon his return to society, the offender is not only willing but also able to lead a law abiding and self supporting life. Reformative theory of punishment. According to the reformative theory, a crime is committed as a result of a conflict between the character and the motive of the criminal. One may commit a crime either because the temptation of the motive is stronger or because the restraint imposed by the character is weaker. The deterrent theory, by showing that crime never pays, seeks to act on the motive of the person, while the reformative theory aims at strengthening the character of the man so that he may not become an easy victim to his own temptation. This theory would consider punishment to be curative or to perform the function of a medicine. According to this theory, crime is like a disease. This theory maintains that you cannot cure by killing. The exponents of the reformative theory believe that a wrongdoer stay in prison should serve to re educate him and to reshape his personality in a new mold. They believe that though punishment may be severe, it should never be degrading. To the followers of this theory, execution, solitary confinement, and maiming are relics of the past and enemies of reformation. Thus, the ultimate aim of the reformist is to try to bring about change in the personality and character of the offender so as to make him a useful member of society. The reformists argue that if criminals are to be sent to prison in order to be transformed into law abiding citizens, prisons must be turned into comfortable dwelling houses. This argument is, however, limited in its application, and it must be remembered that in a country like India, where millions live below the poverty line, it may even act as an encouragement to the commission of crimes. Retributive theory of punishment. So, while discussing the history of the administration of justice, it was seen that punishment by the state is substitute for private vengeance. In all healthy communities, any crime or injustice tires up the retributive indignation of the people at large. Retribution basically means that the wrongdoer pays for his wrongdoing. Since a person who is wronged would like to avenge himself, the state considers it necessary to inflict some pain or injury on the wrongdoer in order to otherwise prevent private vengeance. Whereas other theories regard punishment as a means to some other end, the retributive theory looks on it as an end in itself. It regards it as perfectly legitimate that evil should be returned for evil and that a man should be dealt with the manner in which he deals with others. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth is deemed to be the rule of natural justice. Though the system of private revenge has been suppressed, the instincts and emotions that lay at the root of these feelings are yet present in human nature. Therefore, according to this theory, the moral satisfaction that society obtains from punishment cannot be ignored. On the other hand, if the criminal is treated very leniently or even in the midst of luxury, as the reformative theory would have it, the spirit of vengeance would not be satisfied and it might find its way through private vengeance. Therefore, punishment instead of preventing a crime might indirectly promote it. Unfortunately, the retributive theory ignores the causes of the crime and it does not strike at the removal of the causes. A mere moral indignation can hardly prevent crime. It is quite possible that the criminal is as much a victim of circumstances as the victim himself might have been. It is also unfortunate that this theory overlooks the fact that two wrongs do not really make a right. The theory also seems to ignore that if vengeance is the spirit of punishment, violence will be a way of prison life. Compensation theory of punishment. So, according to this theory, the object of punishment must not be merely to prevent further crimes, but also to compensate the victim of the crime. This theory further believes that the mainspring of criminality is great, and if the offender is made to return the ill gotten benefits of crime, the spring of criminality would be dried up. Though there is considerable truth in this theory, it must be pointed out that this theory tends to oversimply the motives of a crime. The motive of a crime is not always economic. Offenses against the state, against justice, against religion, against marriage, and even against persons may not always be actuated by economic motives. There may be other complicated motives involved in such cases. The theory of compensation may be neither workable nor effective. Quite often, even in the case of offences acquitted by such motives, the economic condition of the offender may be such that compensation may not be available. Therefore, this theory can at best play a subordinate role in the framing of penal code. By way of conclusion, it may be said that administration of criminal justice cannot have any of the above purposes as the single or sole standard of punishment. A perfect penal code must be a judicious combination of these various purposes of punishment. No theory of punishment is a complete answer by itself. All of the above theories of punishment are not mutually exclusive. If the retributive theory is meant pure vengeance, it cannot be accepted. However, it does not mean that, in its true sense, it involves the working of nemesis. The real idea behind retribution is to make the offender realize by a process of reformative detention the heinous of his crime, thus preventing him and deterring others at the same time. As observed by Justice Krishna Iyer in Rakesh Kaushik versus Superintendent Central Jail, the fundamental facts of prison reforms comes from our constitutional recognition that every prisoner is a person, and such person hold the human potential which, if unfolded, makes a robber a Valmiki and a sinner a saint.